The hidden truth about life. After 75, 5 risks you can outsmart. Imagine reaching 75, a milestone that feels like a quiet victory after decades of hard work, love, and resilience. You've earned your silver hair and the lines etched into your face, each one a story of laughter or lessons learned. Most people assume that after such a long, full life, passing away is just a gentle fade into the sunset, something natural, inevitable, and beyond our grasp. But what if I told you that 99% of deaths after 75 boil down to just a handful of causes? And here's the kicker. Many of these aren't mysterious forces of fate. They're risks we can see coming, risks we can sidestep, if only we know where to look. The truth is sobering, yet empowering. Most fatalities in this golden chapter of life stem from avoidable dangers, silent threats that creep up over years, often ignored until they've tightened their grip. By the time the warning bells ring, health has already slipped through the cracks, and options dwindle like sand in an hourglass. But here's the spark of hope. If you understand these risks now, you can rewrite your story. You can take steps today, small, deliberate choices that stretch your years into a vibrant tapestry of strength, independence, and joy. In this journey, we're peeling back the curtain on the 5 leading causes of death after 75, the culprits behind nearly every loss in this age group. Some will feel familiar, like old foes you've heard about in passing, while others might catch you off guard, lurking in the shadows of everyday life. These aren't cold statistics on a page, they're the threads of real lives, grandparents who taught us to fish, neighbors who waved from their porches, friends who shared cups of coffee and quiet wisdom. Knowing these risks isn't just about survival, it's about holding on to the moments that matter, about choosing a life that doesn't just endure, but thrives. Stick with me until the end, because these 5 causes aren't carved in stone, far from it. With meaningful changes, some so simple they'll surprise you, countless people have slashed their risks, stayed on their feet longer, and added not just years, but decades to their lives. The decisions you make today could be the difference between watching your grandchildren graduate or missing out, between dancing at a wedding or being sidelined by frailty. Let's dive in and uncover these truths together, because your next chapter deserves to be extraordinary. Number 1, heart disease, the silent muscle that holds your future. Meet Evelyn, a 78-year-old widow with a laugh that still echoes through her small, cozy kitchen. She's the kind of woman who's baked pies for every church potluck since the 70s, her hands steady with a rolling pin, but less so now with a cane. Evelyn always thought slowing down was just part of growing older. Her breath shorter, her steps heavier, her energy fading like a candle burning low. She didn't know her heart was pleading for attention until the day chest pain sent her to the ER, a wake-up call that shook her to her core. Heart disease reigns as the top cause of death after 75, a relentless force that claims lives with quiet precision. Yet Evelyn's story, and maybe yours, doesn't have to end there. The heart, that tireless muscle pumping life through every vein, isn't doomed to fail. It's not a clock winding down by design, it's a living engine that thrives with care or falters under neglect. The tragedy is that its cries for help are whispers, easy to miss until the damage is done. Picture your heart as a loyal friend, one that's carried you through first loves, late-night worries, and morning walks with the sun just breaking over the horizon. Over decades, though, it faces unseen enemies. High blood pressure, the stealthiest of foes, presses against your arteries like a river wearing down a dam. There's no pain, no neon sign flashing danger, just a slow, steady strain that forces your heart to labor harder. For years, Evelyn ignored her doctor's gentle nudges to check her numbers, thinking fine was good enough. Then came the heart attack, a thunderclap that revealed how close she'd danced to the edge. Then there's diet, a double-edged sword. Decades of salty fries, buttered rolls, and creamy gravies, comforts Evelyn savored, built a wall of plaque in her arteries, narrowing the paths her blood once flowed through freely. But it's not just about cutting out the bad. Your heart hungers for the good stuff. Vibrant greens, juicy berries, the crunch of walnuts, nutrients that fuel its strength. Evelyn never realized that skipping these wasn't just a missed salad. It was a missed chance to fortify her lifeline. And movement? That's the heartbeat's dance. Evelyn used to chase her kids around the yard, her legs nimble and sure. Now, her days blur into hours on the recliner, the TV flickering as her circulation slows. The heart isn't built for stillness. It craves motion, even if it's just a stroll to the mailbox or a stretch in the morning light. Without it, muscles weaken, blood thickens, and risks climb. The biggest lie Evelyn believed, and maybe you've heard it too, is that heart disease is just destiny. Her father had a heart attack at 70, her uncle at 65, so she figured it was in her blood, a family curse she couldn't outrun. But science begs to differ. Small, steady choices, like swapping fries for roasted veggies, walking with a friend, or managing stress with deep breaths, stack up like bricks in a fortress. Evelyn started after her scare, and 2 years later, she's back to baking pies, her heart stronger than she ever imagined. You hold that power too. Your heart's future isn't written yet. It's waiting for you to shape it, starting today. Number 2, falls and injuries, the split second that changes everything now. Meet James, an 80-year-old retired carpenter with hands calloused from years of crafting furniture that still sits proudly in his children's homes. He's a man of quiet pride, the kind who fixes his own leaky faucets and insists he doesn't need help carrying groceries. One rainy afternoon, reaching for a jar on a high shelf, his foot slipped on a wet tile. In a heartbeat, he was on the floor, his hip fractured, his independence shattered. What seemed like a fleeting misstep spiraled into months of recovery, and for James, a fear he'd never known. Falls aren't a disease, but after 75, they're a peril deadlier than most realize. They're the second leading cause of injury-related deaths in this age group, striking in an instant. One dizzy spell, one uneven step, one slick rug. For James, it wasn't just the broken bone. It was the cascade that followed. Bed rest that weakened his lungs, infections that crept in, a pride that crumbled as he leaned on others. Millions visit ERs yearly for falls, and too many never reclaim the life they had before. The danger sneaks up slowly. Over time, balance fades like a memory. Muscles soften, reflexes dull. James didn't notice how his legs wobbled more each year, how his once steady gait grew tentative. He felt fine until he didn't. Aging doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It whispers in the way you grip a railing or pause before standing. And recovery? It's not like when James was 40, bouncing back from a tumble with a laugh. Now, a fracture can be a life sentence, or worse, fear compounds the risk. After his fall, James stopped walking to the park, afraid of another collapse. But stillness is a thief. Muscles waste away, confidence erodes, and the next fall looms closer. It's a cruel loop. Fear breeds weakness. Weakness breeds falls. Yet James didn't see the fix until his daughter stepped in, nudging him toward action. The good news: falls aren't inevitable. James started with simple changes. A daily leg-strengthening routine, lifting his knees while seated, holding the counter for balance. His home transformed too. Brighter lights chased away shadows. A non-slip mat steadied his kitchen floor. A handrail anchored his stairs. Medication checks revealed a pill causing dizziness, adjusted with a doctor's tweak. 2 years on, James walks again, slower but surer, his tools back in hand. Falls don't have to steal your story. They're about awareness, knowing your body's limits, fortifying it with movement, securing your space. For James, it's the difference between crafting a chair for his grandson or watching from a hospital bed. One moment can change everything, but so can one choice to prevent it. Number 3, respiratory diseases, the breath that keeps you alive. Picture Clara, a 77-year-old former librarian with a voice that once carried through story hours, filling rooms with tales of adventure and wonder. Her lungs were her unsung heroes, steady and strong, until a persistent cough crept in last winter. She brushed it off as a stubborn cold, the kind she'd weathered dozens of times. But weeks turned to months, and soon, climbing the stairs to her bedroom left her gasping, her chest tight with a fear she couldn't name. Clara didn't know her lungs were fighting a battle she could have joined sooner. After 75, respiratory diseases rise as a quiet but lethal threat, claiming lives not because they're unbeatable, but because they're underestimated. Breathing feels effortless until it isn't. As we age, our lungs lose their youthful elasticity, their capacity shrinking like a balloon that's been stretched too long. A simple cough or a fleeting shortness of breath can signal something deeper, something that festers if ignored. For Clara, it was chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, a slow thief that inflamed her airways, turning each inhale into a struggle. COPD isn't rare. It's a duo of emphysema and chronic bronchitis, often sparked by years of subtle damage. Clara never smoked, but decades in a dusty library, breathing in mold from old books and city smog on her walks home, took their toll. She'd wave off her wheezing as just allergies, her fatigue as just aging. But those were her lungs crying out, begging for care she didn't know to give. Then there's pneumonia, a wolf in sheep's clothing. What starts as a scratchy throat or a chill can spiral into a life-or-death fight. Clara's immune system, once a fortress, now falters, leaving her vulnerable to infections that younger lungs might shrug off. Air quality, too, plays its part. Clara's cozy home, with its shaggy rugs and aging furnace, harbored dust and dander she never suspected. Outside, the city's haze settled into her chest, year after year. She didn't see the danger. How could she? It's invisible, insidious, a slow erosion of the breath that keeps us alive. And when illness struck, her hospital stay revealed a truth. Too many seniors never fully recover from respiratory crises, their decline hastened by lungs too weak to rally. But Clara's story isn't over, and neither is yours. She fought back with small victories, a daily walk to stretch her lungs, an air purifier humming by her bedside, vaccines for flu and pneumonia she once skipped. Movement became her medicine, light stretches in the morning sun, deep breaths that cleared the fog. Her doctor adjusted her routine, cutting out irritants and adding purpose to each inhale. Today, Clara reads to her great nieces, her voice softer but steady, her breath a gift she guards fiercely. Your lungs don't have to fade. Their muscles too, craving exercise, clean air, and protection. Clara learned late, but you don't have to. Every step, every vaccine, every breath of fresh air is a shield. Don't wait for the gasp that stops you cold. Strengthen what sustains you, starting now. Number 4. Stroke, the sudden storm you can weather now. Meet Daniel, a 79-year-old retired mechanic whose hands still bear the scars of a life spent fixing engines, steady, skilled, and sure. He was tinkering in his garage one crisp fall day when his left arm went numb, his words slurring into a jumble he couldn't untangle. 5 minutes later, it passed, a strange blip he shrugged off as fatigue. Daniel didn't know he'd dodged a bullet, a mini stroke, a warning flare of a bigger storm brewing. 2 months later, a full stroke hit, stealing his speech and half his strength. A thief that struck without a sound. Stroke is a top killer after 75, a lightning bolt that rewrites lives in seconds. It's not a distant threat, it's a sudden rupture or blockage in the brain's blood flow, starving cells of oxygen until they die. For Daniel, it was a clot from an irregular heartbeat he never knew he had, atrial fibrillation that turned his steady pulse into a chaotic rhythm. Some strokes are small, a fleeting stumble in thought or movement. Others, like Daniel's, redraw the map of a life. Paralysis, silence, dependence, or end it entirely. The scariest part, Daniel could have stopped it. Up to 80% of strokes are preventable, a statistic that hums with possibility. High blood pressure, that silent saboteur, was his unseen enemy, straining his arteries for years. He never checked it. Why would he? He felt fine, his mechanic's grit masking the strain. Diet played its role too. Decades of greasy takeout and salty snacks, comforts after long shifts, thickened his blood and narrowed his vessels. Exercise fell away as his knees creaked. His garage, his only kingdom, but stillness let risks pile up. Then there were the mini strokes, Transient ischemic attacks, TIAs, those fleeting warnings Daniel dismissed. A blur of vision, a stumble in speech, gone in moments. He didn't call his doctor, didn't realize each was a rehearsal for disaster. If he'd acted, medication or a tweak in habits could have rerouted his fate. Instead, the storm broke, and recovery became his new battle, relearning words, gripping tools, reclaiming pieces of the man he'd been. Daniel's second chance came hard-won. With his family's push, he monitors his pressure now, a little device blinking numbers he once ignored. Leafy greens replaced fries, walks replaced hours on the stool, and meds steady his heart's beat. He's slower, but he's here. Fixing a neighbor's mower, his hands trembling but determined. You don't need Daniel's wake-up call. Check your pressure, move your body, eat for your brain, and heed the whispers. A stroke's shadow can pass you by if you light its path. Number 5. Cognitive decline, the mind's fragile flame. Finally, there's Margaret, an 81-year-old artist whose watercolors once captured the wild beauty of her coastal town, waves crashing, gulls soaring, life in every stroke. Lately, though, her brush hesitates. Names slip away mid-sentence, keys vanish in her cluttered cottage, and recipes she knew by heart dissolve into fog. Margaret laughed it off as senior moments, but her daughter saw more. A drift toward confusion, a quiet unraveling. Cognitive decline isn't just forgetfulness. It's a thief that steals independence and, too often, life itself. After 75, dementia and Alzheimer's loom large, not just as memories fade, but as a cascade of risks. Margaret's mind, once a gallery of vivid thoughts, now struggles with the everyday. She forgets her pills, skips meals, leaves the stove on, a spark away from tragedy. Dehydration sets in when water feels like an afterthought. A fall looms when she wanders, lost in her own yard. For many, cognitive decline isn't the direct killer. It's the domino that topples health, safety, and will. The descent is slow, subtle. Margaret didn't notice the early signs: misplaced glasses, a story retold twice in an hour. She'd say, "I'm just old," her pride a shield against worry. But those lapses were her brain's quiet alarm, a call she didn't hear until tasks she loved grew daunting. The science is clear. The sooner you act, the more you can slow it. Margaret's doctor says her isolation sped the slide. Days alone, no one to talk to, her mind dimming without a spark. Yet Margaret fights back, her spirit as stubborn as the tides she painted. She puzzles over crosswords, her pencil shaky but sure, stirring memories awake. Walks by the shore flood her brain with oxygen, her steps a rhythm of renewal. Friends visit now, their laughter a lifeline. Social bonds, science says, armor the mind. Her diet shifts too. Berries and fish replace sugary treats, nutrients battling the haze. She's not the artist she was, but she's here, sketching seagulls with a smile. Your mind isn't fated to fade. Challenge it. Read, learn, talk, move it. Exercise feeds thought. Feed it. Antioxidants guard its glow. Margaret's brush may falter, but her light endures. Yours can too, with care that starts today. Final thoughts. Your power, your legacy. Take a breath and let this sink in. Heart disease, falls, respiratory struggles, strokes, cognitive decline. These 5 shadows claim nearly every life after 75. But they're not invincible. They're not your destiny. Evelyn bakes again, James builds, Clara breathes, Daniel fixes, Margaret paints because they chose to act. You can too. These aren't just risks to dodge, they're invitations to live louder, longer, fuller. Aging isn't a surrender, it's a chance to wield the wisdom of years. Small steps ripple outward. A walk today strengthens tomorrow's heart. A chat with a friend sharpens next year's mind. You don't need perfection, just intention. Think of your daily habits. What's one shift you could make? A greener plate? A steadier step? A doctor's call? Every choice is a brick in the life you're building, a legacy of strength for those you love. Your well-being is your treasure now. Guard it, grow it, savor it. These risks don't have to write your ending. Awareness is your sword, action your shield. Picture yourself at 85, 90, 95, vibrant, present, free. That's not a dream, it's a path. Start today and let your next chapter shine.